Hey YouTube, it's John again. Wow, we finally passed 5,000 subscribers. That's pretty exciting, and my subscribers are awesome. My last video, I totally forgot to mention that I don't know if you can really see in the camera or not, but there's a really cool chrome strip running across the front of my windshield, and that was actually sent in by one of you guys. How cool is that? You know, I mean, when somebody throws it in for you, that was totally cool, and I love it. I'm rocking it on the bike. Thank you so much for that, and yeah, for sure. So we are getting here towards the, I mean, it's a beautiful day today. It's like 80 degrees. It's perfect. But the riding season is going to start winding down, and I'm so disappointed in that. I'm so upset about that. Here shortly, I'm going to do a video on, adjust my microphone here. Here shortly, I'm going to do a video on winter maintenance and storage tips. Just kind of going over what I do and what I think is important when it comes to storing your bike and that sort of thing. But first, as another kind of vlog here, while I still have the opportunity to be out on the bike for at least a few more weeks, I wanted to do, excuse me, wanted to do the top 5 motorcycling myths, okay? So top 5 myths about motorcycling, top 5 things that are just totally untrue, yet are consistently perpetuated all throughout the internet forums and internet wisdom, even other vloggers, and even in the comments, and so forth and so forth. A couple of these I've already addressed in separate videos, so be worth checking out. Number 5 I've already addressed in another video, and that is displacement, displacement, displacement. Now the thing is, there was a time when all motorcycles were basically the same, and you could very easily judge a bike purely by its displacement. A 250, a 500, a 1000, you knew what they did. Today, it's just not the case. This bike I'm riding on right now is 1700 cc's. That's 104 cubic inches. That's a very, very big bike. And there are a number of 600 cc sport bikes that I couldn't even catch up to if I wanted to. Their inline 4-cylinder dual overhead cam engines makes significantly more horsepower than this 1700 cc V-twin, although this V-twin makes a lot more torque. A great analogy is diesel trucks, right? Diesel trucks make a tremendous amount of torque. They're not very fast, they don't accelerate very quickly, they're never going to be quick around the corner, but they can pull a lot. And more importantly, as far as their reliability and fuel economy goes, is that they do it at a very low RPM. Diesel engines are used in all sorts of environments, like trucking and shipping, not because they're more powerful. You can build a gas engine that can produce every bit as much power as, you know, the latest Detroit diesel 6-cylinder diesel engine. But they do it at a low RPM, and that means they last longer. It's much the same way in a long-distance touring bike. Tooling along at 2,000 RPMs and not even being in 6th gear at 55 miles an hour means that, A, the engine is going to be more reliable. It's going to be more fuel efficient given the size and weight of the bike. This is less fuel efficient than a number of sport bikes, but more fuel efficient than it would be with a sport bike engine in something this size. And it's going to be smoother and more comfortable, so that makes it a great touring platform. But the point of all this is that the myth that you have to start on a bike under a certain size, or only a bike over a certain size is capable of being on the freeway, or you need to have 1,200 or 1,500 cc's in order to do long distance touring, or you have to have at least 1,000 cc's in order to get on the highway, or you shouldn't start on anything bigger than a 250 cc, and it goes on and on and on, and that's just a myth. There are some good common sense rules out there and some good common sense ideas out there. For example, you probably should avoid the very big bikes as your very first bike, and you want to think twice about taking a very small bike on extended highway trips, because the high RPMs are not only going to be uncomfortable, but it's going to be very tricky to get around trucks and things like that on the highway. But for the most part, it doesn't always add up. The Vulcan line is a great example because the 1990s carbureted Vulcan 1500 produces less horsepower than the fuel-injected Vulcan 900 that's available today. Technology advances. It's amazing how, in the muscle car world, how many of these V6 modern cars the last 2 or 3 years produce as much horsepower as their V8 counterparts from a couple years prior. Technology is improving and changing, and we can't go purely on displacement any longer. So that's myth number 5, and I have a whole video entitled "How Big of a Bike Should I Get?" and I explore that a little bit further. I lost my train of thought there. We're at a little beautiful twisty road riding, no particular destination in mind. But myth number 4, we're just going to lump motorcycle safety into one whole big myth, number 4. This goes both ways. The idea is that the right helmet and the right gear makes you invincible. That's bunk. Motorcycle has real risks. The other one is that, well, motorcycling is extraordinarily dangerous and stupid, and you'll die if you ride a motorcycle. That's also not true. The reality is that motorcycling is a dangerous pursuit, but with reasonable precautions and reasonable mitigations in place, it can be something that you can have a lot of fun at. Myth number 3. Now, this is going to get some comments. Loud pipes save lives. Now, I intend to do a whole video on this. I don't know when I'm going to do that, but I really want to give it justice. I want to set up some different cameras. I want to do off the bike, on the bike. But the idea is that if I have really loud pipes in my motorcycle, people will hear me, and thus I'll be safer. It just doesn't work. Now, I'm not saying that there's no circumstance where a louder motorcycle exhaust wouldn't give you some advantage in safety, but I don't think it's what you think it is. The biggest safety concerns on a motorcycle are cars turning left in front of you or pulling out in front of you. In each of these situations, the motorcycle is not going to be heard until it's too late. Talk to your local emergency service provider. Talk to a police officer, paramedic, firefighter, and they're all going to tell you the same thing, that they all experience outrunning their siren, where they get up to too much speed and even 50 or 60 miles an hour, and nobody can hear them coming until they're right up on them. And that's with forward-facing sirens. I'll take a back-facing exhaust, and it just doesn't work. Take a car with the windows rolled up and the radio blaring, they don't hear you. Even me sitting on my bike with no radio going, sitting like this quietly, I can sit at an intersection and watch a bike, and I can faintly hear it coming. That's true, I can faintly hear it coming. But I can't really hear it loud enough until it's right up on me. Visibility is the most important. So a pet peeve of mine is seeing some bike with a cool little Maltese cross headlight, no turn signals, a tiny little black beanie helmet, wearing all black, and having loud pipes because he thinks that's going to improve other cars knowing he's there. Visibility is key, and it is the most important part. Wearing clothing that's as visible as possible. My black jacket's not doing it, okay? I got a great deal on it. It's the jacket I wear. But a high-vis jacket would be better, although most of it's obscured by my orange fairing anyway. I really think that one of the greatest investments you can make as far as visibility is extra headlights. A lot of motorcycles have fog lights as an availability. That's something I need to add still to this bike, and I probably will in the future. Some sort of fog lights or additional lighting like that will really improve your visibility, and of course brightly colored clothing will too. And myth number 2. So we've got there's no replacement for displacement. All right, we've talked about how that isn't exactly the case. We talk about motorcycle safety in general. We talk about loud pipes save lives. We're kind of all on the same topic of motorcycle safety in a lot of ways, aren't we? So number 2 though is a fun one, and that's that motorcycles will save me money. Okay, so now we're off of safety for a minute. Motorcycles will save me money. The idea is that somebody goes out and they say, well, I want to buy a motorcycle because I want to save money on my commute to work. I want something that's cheaper to drive to work and back. Maybe, possibly, if you don't own any other vehicles and the motorcycle is your only form of transportation. However, most likely, your motorcycle is in addition to some other form of transportation. Especially if you're in a climate like where I'm at, where snow is a reality, right? We're far enough north that the whole world doesn't shut down when it snows. But we're far enough south that we get only a little bit of snow, so it's not a constant concern, but it does happen. So if you live in Missouri, there's a day that's going to come where you have to drive on some snow to get to work. Is that going to happen on a motorcycle? Are you really going to be ready to bundle up and wear warm, heated clothing all the time, every day on your commute, or is it going to be nice to be able to hop in a car and just take off with the heater blasting? I own a car, right? I own 2 cars. So one my wife drives, one I drive, and the reality is that most of us need a car. So it's already an added expense, and any fuel savings you save, my bike gets 42 miles per gallon, my car gets 36. So in my case, it's not much of a savings. Maybe if you drove a pickup truck or something. Chances are the fuel savings will never catch up to the extra cost of the bike. And then there's 2 caveats that get thrown in there, 2 things that really mix it up. One is the added maintenance of a motorcycle. Tires don't last very long and they're expensive. There's the maintenance on the bike itself. There's the added cost of insurance and property taxes in some areas. There's a lot of costs that add up that make it not really a cheaper thing to have. And then you kind of add in the complication that is days like today, where I would not be out here on this road in the middle of nowhere riding around in my car. But I am on my motorcycle because I enjoy riding a motorcycle. That's why I bought a motorcycle. The right reason to buy a motorcycle is because you want to ride a motorcycle, not because you think it'll save you money on your commute. I don't really commute with my bike. I do once in a while if I just feel like riding and I just want to ride, but it really doesn't save you any money. Ride the bike because you enjoy riding it. Don't ride it because you think it's going to save you a few bucks, because it won't. By the time you add everything up, ooh, got some loose gravel there. I don't know if I showed up on the camera, but a big old chunk of loose gravel. By the time you add everything up, by the time you add up all of your additional fuel for the extra time you wasted, by the time you add up maintenance and insurance, is just not going to work. Number one, though, here's number one. We're back on safety. Number one, my number one motorcycling pet peeve, the number one myth, the number one thing I don't want to hear any of you ever tell me ever. I will not tolerate it. Well, I don't care, actually. You can say it all you want. I'm just not going to agree with you, and I'm not going to like it. Number one is, ready for this? I had to lay my bike down. That sets off every BS meter. Yes, I know, I didn't use my turn signal, sorry. Every BS meter for thousands of miles. When you say I had to lay my bike down, the condition is usually somebody says, well, somebody pulled out in front of me or turned left in front of me, or some other crazy situation happened, and I slammed on my rear brake or something, and I laid my bike down. I had to in order to prevent myself from crashing. Well, A, you did crash. B, brakes will stop faster than sliding sideways. You slide sideways on metal and rubber and everything else, and you're not going to slow down as fast. The same is true of anti-lock brakes. People say, well, I don't want anti-lock brakes because I want to be able to lock my brakes up. I can keep it up. I want to be able to lock my brakes up so I can stop faster. Actually, rotating tires with as much friction as they can possibly hold before they lock up is the most possible stopping force your bike is capable of, short of a brick wall in front of you. There's really no situation where sliding into an object is better than hitting it straight on, because you'll hit it slower. At whatever point you decide to slide, say somebody's pulling in front of me right now and I decide up here where this chip seal starts that I'm going to lay the bike down. Sliding into them, I'll be sliding into them probably at about twice the speed that I would be hitting them directly on. Rather than sliding into them at 30, I could slam into them at 10 or 15 with my brakes, and you might be surprised at how effective you actually are in making a complete stop. That's a reality. You could actually completely stop the bike even though you don't think you can. Nobody behind me, because the reality is brakes work, right? And you can stop pretty darn quick if you absolutely have to. So the idea behind that is that I laid the bike down to avoid a collision. It usually actually comes from saving face, okay? Oh, I hate this on the bike when the guy's got these blades spinning around and he's trying to loosen his brush. Get out of here. Anyway, they always do it in the fall and cut along the roads and stuff. Anyway, so what actually happens is, and there's some studies out there to demonstrate this, the idea is that people tend to slam on the rear brake in an emergency. And that, we're not talking about, these are often proficient people. This is why I like link braking systems, because they help us when we become human. The reality is, I don't care how tough you think you are, I don't care how many tattoos you got on you, I don't care how many people are afraid of you, I don't care how big of a bike you ride, I don't care how long you've been riding, I don't care how experienced you are, being in a near accident situation is scary as hell. It is. I've been there, okay? I've had a car, I've been hit, okay? I kept the bike up, everything was okay. I did use both brakes, I think. But I had a car, basically, a truck, actually, a tow truck, with a car on a flatbed. I was from about here to that telephone pole, the lighter colored one. And this truck just pulled out and turned right, but it used my entire lane. So I went all the way over to the shoulder, to the side of the road as much as I could. I had both brakes on full, maybe full, I don't know. I don't really remember. And he sideswiped me, and that was on my 900. I replaced the saddlebag, everything was okay, we were fine. But it was a very scary experience. And let me tell you, you're not thinking, you're just doing. You're doing whatever comes naturally, which is why it's so important to use both brakes, and it's why I preach so hard that you have got to use both brakes. This is before I had a camera, so no video of that. But you've got to use both brakes all the time, every time you ride, because you have to be in the habit of it so that when something happens, you're just ready for it. You just do it. But what often happens is people spend a lot of time in their cars. They're used to, in a panic, when crap hits the fan and it's scary as hell, they slam on that brake. And that means this brake, right? They're used to it. They just slam on it. Boom. Back tire locks up, and what happens is they've hit it so hard. And what happens is, often you can use your back brake a lot, until you get into an emergency situation. Because the harder you stop, the more weight shifts forward, the less traction on the rear. So slamming that rear brake, they start decelerating hard, the back end comes up a little bit, it skids, it slides, and they slide out. And then to save face, even though they'll never admit this, they say, oh, well, I had to lay it down. That wasn't my humanness. That wasn't me making a mistake. That wasn't me being a normal human being who screwed up in a very scary situation. That was, you know, come on, guys, just man up and admit it. It's not that big of a deal. You screwed up. You're okay. You're alive. You get to tell about it and hopefully get on and ride some more. You didn't have to lay it down. Stop saying that and stop making new riders think that that's the right thing to do. Once in a while, I genuinely get scared when I see it. People say, what's the best way to lay my bike down? No! You don't ever lay the bike down. If it happens, it happens. Good Lord, I hope you're okay. But no, we use our brakes correctly. We never, ever lay the bike down intentionally. And linked brakes are so fantastic because in that situation, if I were to slam on my rear brake right now, you can't really tell. I mean, I can feel it, but if I were to slam on my rear brake like I just did, it would actually grab the front brakes too. I didn't really slam on it, I pushed hard on it. It goes against every instinct I have to slam on the rear brake. But pushing on the rear brake kind of hard actually does engage the front brakes on this bike. So in that panic situation, if I were human and screwed up, well, there you go. I'd be relatively okay. All right, guys, I'm interested to hear your thoughts in the comments below. I want to know what you think some of the biggest myths are to motorcycling. All right, guys, as always, I'll talk to you later. God bless. Bye-bye.